Welcome to the great debate, free work. Now, if you have any experience, I'm sure you have heard the most infamous currency that exists, exposure dollars. Anthony and I both grew up doing free work within our career. It is an inevitable part of your journey. But does that mean that it is right? Does that mean that this is something that you should be doing? And that's what we are going to discuss today. We are going to talk about our opinions and our thoughts on this matter. You are not going to want to miss this. My name is Danny Lau. I'm your host for the Happy Box Podcast, and I'm sitting across the co-host Anthony Valtzins. Let's get into it. All right, so today we are talking about doing free work, the great debate.
Big debate.
That everyone always debates about free work.
Yeah.
Now, we all have done it.
Still do it.
Yeah, exactly. Some of us still do it.
Yes.
And I think what we really want to touch on is the pros and cons of it, because I think, being part of a lot of different online communities of filmmakers, from just videographers to high-end DPs or high-end directors, it's highly debated anytime you get like a post about, looking for, cinematographer, looking for whatever, blah, 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 pay none, or like low
honorarium.
or like honorarium, or like credits, right? They get bashed.
You bash them pretty hard too.
I bash them pretty hard. I do bash them pretty hard. But I think it depends on the level of work that it is, where this work's going to live. Is it going to make money? Are people in the rest of the cast and the crew, are they getting paid? Right? And it makes no sense that like you pay everybody else, but you don't pay your DP.
Yeah.
And you expect your DP to bring in thousands of dollars worth of gear. So we're going to really get into all of that, like the ins and outs of it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the free work that you've done, and then I'll
Okay.
go into free work that I've done, and we'll talk about why we did it.
Yeah, I think one of my first freelance jobs ever out of high school, I did for free. And it ended up leading me, or like my jobs, I was doing like $20 music videos. You know what I mean? Crazy like stuff.
Yeah.
For the 12 hours.
In
But
the
my
hood, too.
first, my first free job was what landed me like a 4-year like job placement, I guess. Basically, this guy was looking for a videographer to shoot this event, maybe build it into a larger team. It was a free opportunity. I was young, thought it would be worthwhile, so I did it. Shot and edited this video for this event, this yoga event. And, eventually it led to me like a 4-year kind of salaried position at some point. But I think there's merit to free work. There's a stigma to it, but
Yeah.
it's like you said, there's so many factors that go into it.
Yeah.
It's like your experience level, your skill set, what gear you bring to the table, what they expect. They can't expect someone, with a $20,000 camera to come in for free.
Right.
But unless it's like a really, it's worthwhile for the person coming in, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many factors that go into that as well.
But like you did free work early on, I think strictly for the
There's exposure dollars.
exposure dollars. Yes,
and-
exactly.
And experience dollars.
And experience dollars, right? Like you got a camera, you want to learn how to use it.
yeah.
And I think that's the sole reason why you even do free work.
I think so. Yeah. Like for me, it was experience is also a networking tool in some ways. Like I was new. I didn't expect much from anything. I didn't expect to get paid.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I just want to work. I want to show that I'm like a hard worker, and it worked.
I guess it's almost like your opportunity to show your appetite,
Yeah. Prove yourself a little bit.
to prove yourself a little bit, to almost prove it to yourself too,
Yeah.
that you have what it takes to do it,
Mhm.
and to get the necessary experience to start getting paid for it. And I think that's where I angle in as like where things start going astray for me for free work.
Okay.
When you hit that stage. But just like you, like, when I started, I was doing tons of free work as well.
Okay.
Like I grab a camera and I just go.
Yeah.
Right. And at first it was more so to discover how to do things.
Yeah.
Right. Like what does a lens do?
Yeah.
What does an aperture 4.0 versus a 2.8 mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like what is all this slow motion? Like, how do you do it? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's things like that. How does it affect the image? And so like I'm learning. I think when you start getting to the point, and before I get to this point, free work.
Yeah.
I consider low pay free work, in my
Why?
opinion, because I feel like you might as well do it for free at a certain point. So I'm gonna
Okay.
categorize that in as free work, right? Because essentially, free work is anything where you don't profit.
Got it. I see what you're saying.
So if you are going in with a cheap camera like a T3i and you're going in for free for your first like few gigs, I totally am for that, right?
Yeah.
I understand that. If you go and you upgrade to A7 III, which is still like a $3,000 camera, I think, somewhere around
These
there.
days, I think it's like two.
Two, right? By the time you buy a lens, it's like
Yeah.
$3,500.
Yeah,
Okay,
almost
you got to
four.
make money back for that, right? This
Yeah.
is no longer a $500 camera you find on eBay or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So like now you've upgraded and now you're considered professional because you're gonna put 4K on your logo and you're gonna do all this kind of stuff, right? You're gonna put whatever your name is, productions.
4K.
You know, you're starting that like beginner phase of like I'm a professional.
You post a Kijiji ad, I could do 4K music videos.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you're getting to the point where now you're a business, right? Even a smaller scale business, but you're a business nonetheless.
Yeah.
So I still consider the fact that if you're going to go in and you're going to do $200 gigs, like you have to realize that $200, you know how many gigs you have to do to make that money back
Yeah.
and to profit, right? Like let's just keep it for sake of ease. $1,000 camera, right? Like you don't need to make $1,000. You need to profit from $1,000.
Yeah.
Right. And if you account in the time that you've accumulated in that project, if you account for your hourly rate, if you created an hourly rate, right? Or your day rate, pre-production, gas, production time, post-production, client interaction,
Food, whatever.
food, everything like that, everything that you accumulate in, you have to accumulate that into the cost. So if you going out for 2 days, 3 days, whatever, do a music video, cost you $200 in gas and food alone, then you've made $0.
Yeah.
And anything from there is negative. So you're telling you're pretty much essentially saying that your time is worth nothing. It's worth negative.
Yeah.
Because then from there you're gonna go negative. That's why I still consider the $200 gigs or $300 gigs nothing. And to go back onto the if for those of you who've seen the Doug Eyes On podcast
Yeah.
episode with us, and I speak on it as well on one of our episodes of Evolution of Freelancer, that I mentioned at some point, we both mentioned the same point of like, if you're just going to do $200, do it for nothing.
Yeah.
Just do it for nothing. Because then people can't place a value on you because then people see you as a $200 guy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Exactly.
It's a great point.
Exactly. Which is the best advice you can get once you start, getting to that level. If you're not courageous enough to ask for what you're worth, it doesn't have to be a substantial amount. Like you don't have to ask for an exorbitant amount, but ask for something that makes sense. If you can't do that, then work on that skill set first.
Yeah.
Before you move on to upgrading to an A7S III or whatever, Blackmagic Pocket, whatever you have, right?
Yeah, I think like you have to understand what the project offers to you as much as you're bringing to the table, right?
Yeah.
If you're just starting out and this, let's say, $50 music video or free music video, let's say, is going to lead to you building a portfolio that can allow you to sell to other clients who will pay you what you're worth,
Yes.
then it's worth it. But there's a slippery slope that I actually fell into, which is I was doing $50 music videos. And then when I asked for $100, massive increase. People are like, oh, I used to do it for 50. It's like, I got stuck in it. And that was like, those were my first gigs out of high school. Like, I was just like, someone wants me to shoot something, I'm going to shoot it.
Yeah.
But you're there for 12 hours, then you're editing. It's a complete shit show at that point. But I didn't know better. I was very naive. So
You're still learning.
100%. But it's one of those things where when you start to really calculate it and realize like what goes into it and like what you're doing for someone, it's like the value is there.
Because this is not a job. It's not like a regular job where like you get to, do you take the bus to work? It costs you whatever $3 bus ticket or whatever it is, or gas, right?
Right.
A couple dollars to get to work. Then you come home and you do nothing. And then you get a check at the end of the month or the end of 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
It's not the same because you're walking into work with thousands of dollars worth of liabilities,
Yeah.
right? And so you have the ability, you have that risk factor of losing that. There's times where like, there's one time where I got a gig one time that was like $500, right? When I was newer. And I brought in like $10,000 worth of gear, right? I borrowed a few things from a few people and I brought it in.
Okay.
And one thing malfunctioned. It cost me $2,000 to find a new version of that thing.
Okay.
It was like a monitor,
Okay.
right? $2,000 is essential for this whole thing. So I got $500. It cost me $2,000 because of something that happened that would have never happened if I never gotten that gig, right? And then ultimately, let's be real, clients don't give a care.
No, it's not their job.
They're not going to sit back and be like, "Oh, I feel sorry for you. Let me go pay for that."
Yeah.
Right. So there's a fine line that you have to almost tread when it comes to free work that you have to keep in mind.
Yeah. There's like, I think you do it to a certain level to build your network and your experience, but I think naturally you'll find out, hopefully, on your own that you're worth something if you start understanding what your rates are, what the market value is for what you're offering as a service. It's not going to make any sense because at the end of the day, the people who want free work from you, they understand what the value is, but they're taking advantage of like your like innocence or your inexperience.
That's unfortunately true.
Yeah, unless it's like
Yeah.
everyone's pitching in. This is a passion project. We're all coming in to do this for free. It's gonna be cool. You don't have to do it. But if someone's making money off of your or generating some sort of value from what you're providing, and you're doing it for free, at a certain stage, if it doesn't offer value to you anymore, you got to cut it off.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that value comes in your artistic growth, right? Like, does it help you grow as an artist, but also does it help you grow as a business?
As a business.
It's either both. Ideally, it's both, but it's one or the other. So if it's something that like you're doing as a DP, for example, and you're like, this is going to add a couple shots to my reel.
Yeah.
Then I understand that, right? Because that reel then generates business.
Yeah.
Right. Or if it's a project that says I could put this name on my resume, then I know that then I can then pursue other gigs at a higher rate because now I have this on my resume. That makes sense. It's an investment, right?
Yeah.
Free needs to be an investment. It can't be a loss.
No.
It can't be a liability. It needs to be an investment.
Yeah. It can't be a job that you don't care about, that you're not passionate about.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, I fell into this. I'll be honest. When I was young, it was one of those things where, $50 music videos, they weren't offering me anything. I was kind of just stuck in that thing for the first year or so. And, were the music videos high level? No.
Yeah.
Are they going to generate, $5,000 clients? No. It's just you're doing. I was just doing it to do it at that point.
Yeah.
And
at some point you stop learning, right? Like down the line.
You also don't care, and like the client's process is not right, but what do you like? There's no money in it to even put work into changing that.
Exactly.
And but for example, as a DP yourself, if you see a director who's working on a spec or something a passion project, a short film, and you want to work with them or build that network with them, then it makes sense, I think, to offer that as a way to build a relationship, potentially something for your reel or a case study of some kind. But all the run and gun, like
cheap
shitty gigs.
I've always said this: cheap clients equal cheap experiences.
Yeah.
So you go with a cheap client who doesn't want to pay you, doesn't want to give you your worth or whatever it is. Like, and I'm talking like, understand your worth, first of all. Understand your standard. Like, don't just go there, I'm worth $10,000, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be honest with yourself, right? Your work speaks for itself. But find your worth. If they're not willing to even pay you part of your worth or whatever it is you want from it, then that's where you get the cheap experience. That's when you get the clients that give you unlimited revisions and the ones that give you like a hard time on set or give you guilt trips or manipulate you, right? And here's the thing also with working for free, that this has been my point online and everything is highly debated, right?
Okay.
Understanding that free work or cheap work stints your growth in the future. Right?
After a certain level.
After a certain level. When you get to the point where you were at, I would say when I first met you, you were well beyond the value you were offering. And I saw that from the very get-go. I was like, this kid is too fucking good to be making this fucking little for his work. This work ethic speaks for, if his work ethic was shit and his experience with him is garbage and he's just plotting out work, then okay.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, vice versa. But no, this kid had it both, right? Work ethic with good work. So immediately I looked at you and I'm like, he's not getting paid enough. If you continue to go down that market, I'm just using it as an example, but there's a lot of people obviously like this, right?
Yeah.
If you continue to go down that road and set the example in the marketplace that work at your standard is only worth so-and-so amount of money, say $200.
Yeah. It ruins the industry.
It ruins the industry.
Yeah.
You are setting the standard. Like people think, oh, well, I got to live. I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
Do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Do it. Get a part-time job. You don't have to do it when you get to that point where you are worth a certain value. So if your work looks like $1,000, but you're charging $200, guess where that hurts you? It hurts you in the future.
Yeah.
And you've got to look at it that way, right? Because later on, when you got to ask for $1,000, guess what? The current clients that you have are not going to give it to you, right? Clients don't give you raises. Always said that, right? Secondly, when you got to go and say, I want to jump from $200 to $1,000, how are you going to make up for that huge gap?
Yeah.
What value are you actually bringing? People are not going to see your current value and be like, you know what, you were right. No, they're going to ask you, what am I getting for that extra $800?
Yeah, they're not going to admit that. I was taking advantage of you. I'm not going to do that
exactly.
now.
They're not going to admit
much.
their guilt.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's also, it comes down to like sales and marketing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you, let's say you're good. This is like the example that you actually are good, but you're undervaluing yourself.
Yeah.
If you can't sell and market to your ideal customer, if you can't find product market fit for what you're offering, it's your fault. It's like
Yes.
you're either your client is not your ideal client that you're working with, your work sucks,
Yeah.
or you don't know how to sell and market your services and you don't value yourself. So it's one of those three, I think, because if you understand, like once you start to, and this is something that I'm still learning, is like once you understand what things are worth and where you're at amongst that spectrum of, I guess, service providers.
Yeah.
It's dumb the amount of money that you could potentially make in this industry,
100%.
And it's dumb looking back. If you were like someone like me who was doing things, I was shooting real estate for a long time. It's a very rat race volume game.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of that industry. However, it's been skewed to a point where, I think the value of to spin onto real estate for a second.
Yeah.
Those services offer quite a large value to a real estate agent or a team or a brokerage, whatever,
100%.
because it's selling a home. It's not the only part of selling a home, but it's the marketing. It's the content for the marketing, and to do it for $100 is like,
I mean,
crazy.
I don't know the real estate game because I never got into it.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at it in a sense of like, for example, a wedding, right?
Okay.
If you know that weddings spend an average of $50,000 per wedding, then you should not be doing a video for $200.
Exactly. Yeah.
You got to understand the scale in which you can ride its value based off of just the idea that a wedding is a one-time thing. And that's why they pay exuberant amount of prices for their napkins and their chairs,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a one-time thing. You are a one-time thing for them.
Yeah.
Right. So for you to be able to go in there and be like, I want $5,000, I want $10,000, whatever it is, the cost that you cost for a wedding, it makes sense.
Yeah.
In a real estate game, I feel like, I don't know it as well. I mean, perhaps you can correct me, but like somebody who, sells a house makes a commission of over 6 figures, perhaps on per house, right? On multi-million-dollar house.
Yeah. It depends.
Depends on which house it is, right? But they make a pretty good freaking killing on it. Why is
5
your video?
figures,
Yeah, 5
depending.
figures. Okay, even 5 figures. Even 5 figures, right? $200 on a video that does. I mean, not taking away their work ethic, but like it does a big part of the sales process for them, especially today.
The
in the
market,
virtual world.
The market at this stage is it's too saturated with these companies, and a lot of it's outsourced editing.
Yes,
It's in fucking Thailand. It's in somewhere else, and
Right.
It's a volume
it's just pumping out
productized.
content. Yeah, and in a lot of ways,
fine. It is
which
what
is
it is.
fine. It is what it is. But why is that set like that versus a wedding? You know what I mean? Because people in the wedding industry realize that this is a one-time thing.
Yeah.
They can capitalize on that. Whereas there's houses everywhere. Like real estate is huge, at least in the metropolitan areas, right? Like it's giant. So people are, they're just going. It's a fast-paced kind of industry.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it takes one person at a time to set the standard that it'll only cost me $200 to shoot this house. And what happens when you want to become the $10,000 guy? What then? How do you get there?
Shoot architecture.
You can't. You have to move on to like another industry, right? Like within the industry, but you have to move on to a different niche that understands the value of video or values the production value, right? Or values the videos. But like, how do you get there? You can't, because what happens? There's another you out there that looked up to you, or at one point was doing the free stuff, and like, oh my God, I wish I had an A7S III, and looked at you and said, oh, okay, he does it for $200. And there's always gonna be a kid who does it for $200. So you're never, ever gonna get past that road.
Yeah.
You're gonna hit a cap and a limit. And I think that's where I have my biggest beef with free work. You are hurting yourself without realizing it, because you're hurting the market. And then for you to jump up to the next level, how do you get there, right? How do you get to the $10,000 mark? You have to upgrade yourself in so many different ways.
Yeah, 10x at least.
You have to 10x your abilities. You have to really stand out from the crowd. And that is not easy.
Yeah, I think the approach that I'm taking now is, if I were to hire someone to do the job for me, start to finish, the full process, what would I pay them?
Yeah.
Based on what I know in the industry. And then you mark it up from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't, like, it's a business. If you're not running it as a business, which is I was at fault for a long time in my freelance career, there needs to be a profit. You have to understand your operating expenses. You have to understand what this thing is worth, what it's worth for the client. It's something I'm still learning, obviously, but like, if you just think about the concept of money and you know what something would be would offer someone as a business owner, you can't you know, it's almost embarrassing to offer what, you know, someone $200
when you look back.
Yeah, it's like it's like, okay, like, I hope you go, like, you know, if you win the lottery, give me something, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
But you know, that's part of I think it's part of the game. I was so young at the time too, so.
But I mean, it's a huge part of the game, especially in the music video industry, right? Like we
in Scarborough,
we read about that Blog TO videographer.
Yeah, I knew that guy.
Yeah, so that's crazy, right? His story is very common. Like how he gets to a point where you feel underappreciated, and you feel like if second someone gets big, it's like, oh, we don't need you anymore. We got somebody else now. And that's the thing. Like, no one's gonna carry you with them.
Yeah, but they won't.
They won't. Like, it doesn't work like that.
And the biggest, it's ultimately your fault, you know?
Yeah, and it is. Absolutely. It's accountability. It is your fault because you put yourself in that position. You're agreeing to it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you let's say you accept the $50 music video, knowing it's not what you're worth, you might as well don't do it and put the $50 into like your own project.
Yeah.
If it's at that level where you don't need that client
to
as a case study or a portfolio piece or something to pitch to other clients.
Yeah.
If it's not worth it to you at that level, do your own thing.
Yeah.
That you're excited by, that's gonna maybe align with your ideal client.
Yes.
Otherwise, like, you're literally just doing it out of, I don't know what you're doing it out of.
I mean, at that point, you're just doing it. It's almost like you treat it like a job almost. And like you're almost mechanically, just robotically going through life and through this, you know, your
soldiering through
career,
it.
and you're wasting so much valuable time. Like your ability to learn, your ability to grow. My biggest advice to people is always, if you want to determine whether or not you should do something for free, because something I want to make clear is that I'm not saying you don't do free work. Like we said, you do it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
In fact, even later on, if you're going to do it, it has to benefit you artistically. You know, that's just generalized, right? Like, it needs to be an investment. But my biggest advice to determine whether or not you should take on free work is exactly that. You need to determine whether or not this thing is actually going to help you artistically.
Exactly.
Like, if it makes your reel that much better, therefore lands you bigger work, then it's worth that investment.
100%.
Right? So yes, free work should be done, but under a certain, certain values and certain standards that you have to set for yourself, and understand that your business. And you have to also look at, like you said, you going back to what you mentioned about understanding what that project is. What does it offer? Is this a project that's going to land them potentially millions of dollars in funding or sponsorships or whatever? You have to understand the business side of it. You have to understand that if I'm going to play a piece in this and help you get that sponsorship money, or help you get that funding, or help you get that whatever it is, then I need a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
That's just business.
Yeah, exactly. Like Chris Doe talks about it. Even our friend Stev talks about this a lot. Like it's if you break it down at that level, it's like a no-brainer. Like you can't be mad if they don't accept it. That's up to them.
Yeah.
But you have to be educated and strategic to know what this is offering.
Exactly.
Because I do think strategic free work is worth something. Like,
it's worth something. Yeah.
like if a a DP I look up to, or a director I look up to, or a producer is like producing something, and I just want to offer what I can do. Hey, whatever you need, I'm down. I would still do that, because that for me is a big investment on my end. And so there's so many things that go into it, but you got to think about it strategically and as like a business person as well.
And even relationships, right? Like I work for free for people who I actually want to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. And half the time they're always like, no, we're going to pay you. But like, that's the type of like understanding. It's like you have to be passionate. You have to be hungry.
Yeah.
You have to always constantly have an appetite for this in this industry in order to survive in it.
Yeah.
Right. And you also got to eat.
Yeah.
Right. And so people understand that. And the more hungry you show, when you get to a certain point where you offer value in a skill set, people are going to pay you regardless. Yeah. But that's not to say that I wouldn't do stuff for free. You know what I mean? Like I would definitely do things for free if I felt like it benefited it benefited my artistic ability, or it benefited my relationship with the people that I want to work with.
Yeah. The networking is
huge.
At this stage, the biggest, everyone in the industry at this stage, they're not going to like accept you doing something for free.
Yeah.
It's more like everyone's doing it for free. Like we were talking about, you want to jump on this, go right ahead.
Yeah.
That's how I see it at this stage. Cause like if it's fun and everyone's just hanging out, producing something cool and working hard together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm down. Like I'm not like, as long as I'm financially secure and I'm not like losing out on a potentially, paid opportunity with a client. Like it's fun. Like this is why we do it. Like we enjoy what we do.
Yeah, exactly. So. And usually, what I realize a lot, especially happens in the music video industry a lot, the reason why this type of stuff happens there a lot is because ultimately people who make music videos, they don't know why they're doing it, right? They're just doing it for views. Like they think they need a music video because they need to amp up their music.
The artist.
Yeah, the artist themselves, right? It's usually them that come out and be like, hey, can you shoot this for $50 or $100 or whatever, right? There's a reason, because there's no strategic plan. So you got to dig into understanding what the client's plans are. If the client has a plan of like a marketing strategy on how they want to take this video and make money and generate money from it, you can have a better understanding of how you can budget this and how you can actually ask for money. If you go in and be like, I was going to go on YouTube, and trust me, bro, like I know The Weeknd's cousin and I know like Drake's boy and like everyone's going to watch it, bro. Yeah. Like you go into that, that means nothing.
Yeah.
It's zero. That means nothing. Therefore, you can already know right off the bat that person's not going to pay you jack shit for your services.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible business idea.
Yeah.
Right?
They have to know their business model as much as you have to know your business model.
Exactly.
Like you can't go into it knowing what you're worth and what the market is worth for what you're doing, but they don't know the worth of that, and they don't know how they're going to promote it and market it. There's no strategy.
There's no strategy. There's no business plan. There's nothing. If there's nothing, there's no marketing behind it, then you can almost guarantee your ass that they're not going to pay you that money, because it's money coming out of their pocket likely.
Yeah.
And they have no return investment plan
that's what I was going to say.
For it at all. Yeah. So of course they don't want to spend more than $500. And of course they'd rather spend $500 on their new jeans than on your music video, because to them, jeans, there's value to them, wearing those jeans.
Instant value.
It's the instant value, right? And so like the biggest difference between getting too caught up in being an artist and mixing the business, like when you get too caught up in being an artist, unfortunately, what happens is you don't think about the business, and you gotta just dive a little bit into the business and understand it a little bit.
A lot.
Yes, a lot. But at least try to get there.
Something.
To start, right? You have to understand a little bit, understand something.
Yeah.
And then that's when you're going to start to realize, oh, I can justify going from $200 to $1,000. It's not how good you are on the camera or how great of an image you can create. Yes, it plays a part of it as well. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not just about your image. It's that understanding the business. that when you speak to a client and you're having a discovery call and you're talking about where they want to put this thing, where they want to market it, how much, what the numbers are. Maybe if you're lucky enough, they'll share you the numbers, right? If you can really dive deep, then they start to understand that you're trying to solve their business problems
Yeah.
with your video service. You're not just creating something cool and somebody wants it.
Yeah.
If that's all it is, no one's going to pay you enough or pay you enough to profit in this industry.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if I had this experience when I was working for someone for 4 years, it's like we would produce something and, there was no strategy behind how to use that piece of content to generate a return on investment for the client.
Yes.
And ideally a profit. And if the business owner that you're talking to, the client you're talking to, really wants to see, a return on investment on this service, they'll be willing to have that open, transparent conversation with you because you're helping them. You're not in it to like steal money from them.
They understand that you're trying to solve their issue.
Exactly.
So they want to share it with you. They want to be transparent.
They should.
Yeah, they should.
Because you're all in this together. Like, you're going to be making money because they can make money off of this.
Exactly.
The last thing I want to do is send a video to a client and have it die. And it's like, okay, I feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Like, this has to be valuable. This has to have a strategy behind it. That's why there's marketing agencies,
Yeah.
They're hand in hand. A video production team and a marketing agency, they have to go hand in hand because a video is nothing if no one sees it. It's like a tree falling in a forest.
Yep.
What's the impact,
And you can't market something that doesn't scream value, right? And that's where the production value comes.
That's why there's a whole process.
That's why there's a whole process and a whole like streamline of people who have to put the whole thing together, right? And so like going back to free work, like just to kind of summarize it all, because there's a misunderstanding of like, like you said, like online, sometimes I tend to fight people when they say, offer free work.
You joke around.
It's not, I joke around a little bit. It's not so much the artist that I'm arguing.
No, yeah.
It's the people who are offering the jobs. There are a lot of shitty people out there, man. And a lot of people who love to manipulate people. And then there's also people who are just don't know. People who are just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Who are just blind to the idea of how our industry works.
Yeah.
And they genuinely are just not educated in the process, right? There's those. Yeah. But then there's also shitty people, right? And those shitty people are the ones that tend to go out there and know they're predators. They know they're going out there to manipulate a videographer, a poor videographer, because ultimately a lot of videographers are people who come from regular jobs.
Yeah.
Who are trying to leave the whole workforce or the common workforce in society, right? They want to chase something that, it's a pipe dream at the end of the day, which is, I'm a dreamer, so I'm all for it. But and you're most of the time you're easily impressionable, you're vulnerable, you know what I mean? You're almost clueless, right? Because you're not taught how to freelance and how to be an entrepreneur growing up in school. You're only taught how to work a job and show up on time and do a 9 to 5 and do whatever it is you're good at or whatever you're hired for, right? We're not taught these things. So when you go into entrepreneurship and you go into this freelance world, it's like you're starting blind. You have no idea what you're doing. You're like a newborn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's also conflating the art and the business.
Yeah.
Like if you're just starting out, you're kind of eager. You're like, oh, someone wants to pay me for me to have fun and enjoy something.
Right.
Most jobs people don't like. Let's just be honest about that. They don't enjoy McDonald's or Tim Hortons when you're like a teenager.
Yeah.
It's just for the money. But like, oh, I can shoot videos and take photos for like $100. Like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So like, it's the artist's fault as well to almost be like, yeah, like this, I'm living my dream, but like, Are you really?
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you start to, it's great to have that passion, but at the same time, at some point you have to snap out of it and realize that, oh, I have to live, I have to survive. And in order to do that, you got to run a business.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing is that free work again is something I always say you do it until you reach a certain point. And at that point, if you continue to keep free or low, you're hitting yourself, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're hurting the industry. You're poisoning the market. And then whenever you want to grow, that younger version of you is going to cause the same problems that you caused those people who are trying to grow.
Yeah.
You kind of breed the problem. It's almost like a cancer that you spread the cancer. And because ultimately clients, they don't give a shit about the process. Let's just be honest. They just care what's the number and what am I going to get out of it?
Yeah.
Profit. That's it. So if you set a number and people continue to set that same number, what's going to happen? They're going to tell their buddy and their friend and their business next door, and they're going to tell other people, a video only cost me $500. Indeed, Mandy's, Craigslist, whatever you list your jobs in, are all going to be $500. Because that's the standard they know. So what's going to happen when people do research in your new business? You're going to look it up. Well, I wonder how much a videographer costs for this. Look it up on Indeed, and you're going to see a bunch of 500, 500, 200, 300. Okay, yeah, 500, 500, 200, 200. So then you saturate the market with gigs that you're overworked, you're underpaid, and you're undervalued. And then that's ultimately going to lead to a lot of people giving up.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to lead to people not wanting to work anymore. They treat videographers almost like frontline employees, unfortunately. You know, I hate to say it, but it's true, right? How can I pay you less than minimum wage while I gauge all the profits? Listen, as a businessman, I understand that. I understand that model, right? As an artist, it's your responsibility not to get caught up in that.
Yeah. I think if you break down the value again financially, and you put your emotions and like your artistic pride aside and the eagerness, again, you can do it on your own time.
Yeah.
On your own dollar.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. It's tough. Like if it's a
tough world.
Just think about it as a business.
Yeah.
And you will not let that happen. Like you'll get upset. You'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or but that depends. You have to be good to and you have to know what your service is and offer a valuable service. If you're producing trash videos and content, like you have to be aware of that. And
that's a very good point that you brought up there, because that's part of the process and part of the solution of this whole problem, right? Because what do you have to do? What's the solution to this whole issue? Well, you got to get better, and you getting better is going to offer better value. Therefore, you can ask for more money. So getting better means getting better as an artist, but also get better as a business person. That's understand the business, right? So you have to get better. That's the number one thing. So within all this mess, within the whole chaos and the whole storm of everything, you have to improve and you have to continue to grow. That's why I always emphasize growing, right? Because you have to get better in order for you to ask for more money, right? So when you get to that point, that's the answer. Like, how can you improve to get to the point where you can leave that world, right? And sometimes getting to that point is going to cost you money, because maybe you need to buy more gear, or maybe you need to hire more crew, or maybe, you know what I mean? You're going to take on expenses, right? Maybe you got to buy some courses. I don't know, whatever it is that you need to do to help you get better. And then you'll realize, holy shit, I'm not getting paid enough. I need to get paid more because I'm spending more money than I'm getting.
Exactly.
And that becomes the biggest issue. How do you do that? How do you get to that point?
I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, that
was a whole.
Free work is tough. Free work is tough because I know it can get, very ranty. And one more solution that I will say before we cap this off is learn how to say no.
Yeah.
Learn how to say no. I think it's better for you to go off and do a job somewhere else, like help mow the lawns of your neighborhood or whatever, to make that $100 that you want to make, or go get a part-time job somewhere just temporarily while you do this other stuff,
or start a proper business,
or stop. That's the that's the ideal way. But like, assuming you don't understand how to do that, right? I think it's better that you go off and you do something else, make money elsewhere. Don't saturate your market with bad gigs by accepting them and helping and kind of like encouraging that behavior, if you will, and go make the money you need to live somewhere else and do this part-time until you're ready, until you understand. Take your time with it. And don't be afraid to say no. Right now, you are not missing out anything, man. Like there's so much work out there. There's so much work out there. People need videos. We're living in the age where videos is TV.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the day, you're not going to be missing out. The market will always be here. So work like I did. Like I worked at UPS for 5.5 years, right? Work like I did. And on your free time, whenever you can, learn, grow, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Until you understand a business mind, then go in and be like, okay, how can I structure a business? How can I work, survive, structure a business? I know it's a lot of work, it's a grind, and then eventually turn this business into my full-time thing.
Yeah, I agree. You need to have your side hustle become your business, but like you said, it takes that growth period to really like escape your job and also understand the value that you're offering and run a sustainable business off of that.
And you can't rush. Don't rush.
No, yeah,
Take your time.
Yeah, you have to be confident. You have to understand, like, you have to make sure that your whole checklist is complete.
Yeah,
and that you've gone through, I guess, the due diligence to understand that this business can work.
Yeah,
before you launch,
and ask for advice. That's something that you hear a lot in this podcast, right? From people, from our guests. Ask for advice. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. Go and like the people that you look up to, or maybe you're not going to be able to reach Steven Spielberg, obviously.
Yeah.
Or like, well, these days it'd be like, I don't know, the I don't know what, J.J. Abrams, or like, I guess whatever
where is that guy at?
I don't know. The Michael Bay's. I'm probably even going to era below where it is today, right? But like, maybe perhaps you can't reach those people, but like reach out to your local person that you look up to, like that is doing commercials locally for companies that you want to work for in the future.
Yeah, if you're not slimy, you'll get feedback.
Be a good person. Go out there, ask for help. Just be like, oh, how can you offer help, right? And I think, that's something that, like, when you learn how to do that, then you start to understand how they operate, right? But don't rush. Don't think that, like, oh, okay, I'm going to show up on this person's set and I'm going to be able to do what they do all of a sudden. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Go in there and just take your time. Like, just take it all in. Live this lifestyle. Let it be part of your life and just live it. Don't rush it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people, I get a lot of, is people ask me all the time, how do I just, start doing what you do? Well, let me just cycle back 10 years, and like, come on, like, how can I tell you how to live my last 10 years in one day? Like, it's just not possible.
Yeah, it's a that's a course.
That's a course. That's a whole thing on its own. So ask for help. Don't be afraid to say no. Get better through whenever you possibly can, and just try not to poison the market, man. And that's my advice.
Poison the market.
Any advice?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think we went on a bunch of different tangents, but I think in there, people will understand what we're talking about. But all
cycles about free work at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's it. Another awkward ending.
I know. It's always an awkward ending, but the Mamiyas were nice.
Yeah, they're sick.
Yeah, I brought the Mamiyas today, so
right there.
And you don't get that by doing $200 gigs.
I think you do, actually. I just did a lot of $200 gigs. But hey, like, I don't regret any of it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, you either work super hard for it or,
fucking knows, man.
All right.
There's levels to the game.
Boom.